Hello everybody. Now today we'll start our session. So today in this session we'll discuss movement versus shift in the demand curve. For that we'll go through just I am sharing the screen. It will take just few seconds. Now this topic actually I was mentioning movement versus shift in the demand curve. So today we'll discuss this topic, and after discussion you will be realizing that lot of things you are understanding, and your doubts will be clear. So after this session, then we'll be discussing elasticity in demand and other details. So to start with this topic, like a question may come that discuss the movement in the demand curve, okay, or discuss shift in the demand curve. These are two different things. So first we'll discuss movement along the demand curve. Movement along the demand curve means movement in the demand curve. Okay. Now we know that demand or law of demand is basically the relationship between the quantity demanded and its price. Okay, these are having inverse relationship. Inverse relationship means if price increase, demand decrease; if price decrease, demand increase. Okay, so this is basically we know based on the law of demand. Now sometimes different things also happens. So these things you will understand through the movement along the demand curve or movements in the demand curve. Now, as I said that the basic law of the demand is having a relationship between the quantity demanded and its price. Its price means commodity price or good price. Okay. Now, if we think that like demand curve, like first we'll go through this example. Okay, like in the y-axis, price is representing y-axis representing price, and the x-axis representing quantity demanded. Okay, now like if we consider like PO is the original price, then OPO price indicates that market demand will be QO. Okay, so at the price PO, consumer will purchase O quantity of the good. Okay, now see, I am first explaining the thing, then I will go through the concept involved here. Now, if the price reduce from PO to P1, then demand for the same commodity increase up to Q1, OQ1. Okay, so that you are noticing. So this is basically movement along the demand curve. Okay, now due to the decrease in the price, demand have increased to Q1, OQ1. This is basically the expansion of the demand curve. demand curve has expanded, okay, from x to y. Okay, so from x to y, demand curve have expanded. This is known as the expansion of the demand curve. This is one concept. Then if we think reverse means if we think P1 is the original price. Now from P1 price have increased. The price have increased to PO. Okay, price have increased to PO. So demand will for that commodity will reduce to OQO. Okay, so as demand will reduce, so demand curve will have a upward movement. Demand curve will shift from Y to X. So this is known as contraction of the demand curve. What I said, contraction of the demand curve. This is another concept. Okay, and these are basically the movement, you know, upward, ups and down movement. Now, you know, like in the law of demand, price play very active role. Okay, now when we talk about the movement along the demand curve, here also price will play very vital role. And the family needs will be silent or passive in manner. What I said, first I said that in the movement along the demand curve, price of the good will play a very active role or vital role. Then I said that the family need for the good will be passive or inactive or silent. Then due to this, consumer demand may go up, go down. Consumer moves on the same demand curve up and down. Okay, what I said, consumer moves on the same demand curve. Demand curve is the D1. This is the demand curve. D1 is the demand curve. So consumer moves up and down on the same demand curve. See, that's why first I have explained the graph. Then now I am going through the concept. Okay, so now you understand D1 and D1. This is the demand curve. So consumer moves down, up. Down means from X to Y. Okay, this is known as expansion of the demand. Expansion of the demand. And when, you know, price increases from P1 to PO, then, you know, there is a movement from the Y to X along with this demand curve. Okay, consumer source move along with the demand curve. This is upward. Okay, and it's come to the PX. Okay, and quantity demand is OQ. Okay, so this is known as the movement along the demand curve, and it is also known as contraction and expansion of the demand curve. Expansion means when, you know, price decrease, demand will increase. This is related to the expansion of the demand curve. And contraction means like when price will increase, demand will decrease. And due to that, there will be a movement in the demand curve. And that movement is known as contraction in the demand curve. What I said, contraction in the demand curve. Okay, so this is basically the movement along the demand curve. Demand curve may move upward, downward, Okay, and there are contraction of demand curve happens and expansion of demand curve happens. Okay, now after this we'll discuss shift in the demand curve. This is related to the shift in the demand curve. Now, in the shift in the demand curve, what is the basic concept? Like in the assumption of the law of demand, we have assumed that other factors remain unchanged or remain same. Okay. Now other factors are what? Like income will remain same, then price of the related goods will remain same, taste, preference, habit will remain same. Okay. Now if there is change in these factors like income, then taste, preference, habit, then price of the related goods, and due to that change in the demand takes place, it is known as the shift in the demand curve. Now again I am telling you, like shift in the demand curve refers change in the demand due to the change in other factors apart from price. Till now we have known that if there is a change in the price, demand may increase, demand may decrease. But what happens if the income increase or taste and preference, habit, fashion of the consumer changes? Okay, or price of the relative goods or related goods goes down, like tea, coffee, these are substitute good. Now if the coffee price come down, okay, coffee price come down and it's almost come at par to the tea price, then what will happen? Consumer will shift to the coffee, and in that case demand of the coffee will increase. So, and demand for the tea will reduce. Demand for the tea will reduce. Now, see, due to the change in the related good price, there is a shift in the demand. Now, we'll understand this. Now, what I said, that shift in the demand curve refers to change in demand due to the factors which we have assumed will remain same, okay, apart from the price. Now here, like D is the original demand curve with price PO, like y-axis representing price, x-axis representing quantity. Now here, if we consider original price is PO, then the demand D is the demand curve. Okay. Now if we think like demand increase, this is D1. Okay. So demand increase to D1. This is D1 demand curve. This one D1 demand curve. So demand increase to D1. Now what are the changes happening? Like with the PO price, consumer may buy larger amount of goods. Okay, like B to R. This is the extra quantity or larger quantity consumer may buy, like PR. Okay, with the same price. Then see this happened due to the change in the preference, taste, habit, or price of the related goods. Then now assume that price have increased to P1. So as price have increased to P1, consumer will purchase same quantity of goods with the high price. Okay, like this is the like P1. So when price increase, if we consider D1 is the increased demand, so with the increased price, consumer will buy same quantity of goods. Okay, now this when can happen? When there is a change in the income of the consumer, like due to promotion, increment, or change in the job, or if a businessman are doing well in the business, income is increasing. So in that case, okay, if price increase, consumer may consume same quantity of the goods with the increased price. Then if price decrease, P1, say P2, sorry, this is P2. Okay, so if price decrease to P2, then like with the decreased price, like D2, this is the decrease in the demand. Decrease in the demand represented by D2. Okay. Now, if price come down to P2, then with the decreased income, consumer may consume PC, same quantity of goods. Consumer may not prefer to buy more. Okay, or due to the heavy taste preference, consumer are not ready to purchase more. Okay, now say for example, if the price again increase from P2 to PO, then in that case consumer may purchase less amount of good. This is PT. Okay, PT, this is the point T. Okay, so consumer can purchase this much of good. So these are known as the shift in the demand curve. Here, price is not a main fact. Price is not a matter, but the consumer income, price of the related goods, then consumer taste, preference habit are the main things. Now, due to these factors, if demand increase or demand decrease, what will happen? That we discuss through the shift in the demand curve. Okay. Now we'll go through our main topic. Our today's main topic is movement versus shift in the demand curve. So we are discussing movement along the demand curve and shift in the demand curve. So for that we have discussed it separately. Again, I will give you the summary of the movement along the demand curve. Now in the movement along the demand curve, price will play a very active role, and consumer needs may be passive, and consumer will move upward or downward along the demand curve, and this is known as expansion of the demand curve or contraction of the demand. Okay, now this how happen? Like if we assume that first price was PO, and in that price quantity demand was OQ. Now from this PO price come down to P1, and when price come down to P1, demand for that good increase to OQ1. Okay, so demand curve shift, demand curve have a movement. Demand curve have a movement from X to Y. This is downward. You see the arrow downward. Okay, so this is downward slope movement. Earlier we have gone through the causes of downward slope of the demand curve. So demand curve are moving from X to Y, and D1 this is the demand curve. Now if we think reverse, just opposite, like if the price, original price is P1. Okay, OP1 is the P1 is the price. Now from this price level, price increase to PO. Now if price increase from P1 to PO, in that case what will happen? From Y there will be an upward movement to X, where consumer will reduce the purchase, and due to that there will be a reduction in the demand, quantity demanded. There will be a reduction, or quantity demand will reduce, and that will come to OQ, which is represented by X. So there is a upward movement. So this is basically movement along the demand curve. Then next we have discussed shift in the demand curve. So shift in the demand curve, what I have explained, like shift in the demand curve refers change in the demand due to the change in the factors like change in the consumer income, change in the related goods price, change in consumer habit, taste, preference, change in fashion. Okay, and in that case price is not a factor. Demand will get changed due to this factor. Price is not a matter here, and this is known as shift in the demand curve. Now for that, what we have done, like y-axis representing price and x-axis representing quantity. Now PO is the original price. Now at PO price, D is the demand curve. Okay. Now PB is the demand point. Now if demand increase up to D1, so with the same price, consumer may buy extra amount. If we are assuming that demand increase to D1, then consumer may buy BR extra amount, and total purchase will be PR with the same price. Now in case price increase to P1, and if the consumer income change, this may happen due to the consumer increased taste, preference, habit. Okay, and if price increase, now assuming that consumer income has increased. Okay, so consumer may buy same amount of good with the increased price. Then if from PO, if we assume that original price is PO, and from PO price is coming down to P2. So when price will be P2, if consumer taste and preference does not change, okay, consumer do not want to purchase more, then demand will remain same and consumer will purchase PC amount of goods, which is represented by D2. Demand decrease. This is demand decrease. So this is original demand point. D1 is increased demand and D2 is decreased demand. Okay, so how demand curve is getting shifted? Now, if from P2 again price increase to PO, if price increase, consumer may reduce the quantity of the purchase, and that may shift to POT. Okay, so this is basically shift in the demand curve. So today in this session we have discussed movement versus shift in the demand curve. So for that we have covered two areas: movement along the demand curve, then we have discussed shift in the demand curve. Now from this part, question may come, write a short note on the movement versus shift in the demand curve. Okay, or discuss movement versus shift in the demand curve. This is one. Then separately may come, discuss movement of the demand curve, or discuss a movement along the demand curve. Then discuss shift in the demand curve, or what is shift in the demand curve. Then discuss shift in the demand curve. Like this, a few question answer we have addressed throughout this session. Now today we will not discuss more. Next session we will meet with another topic, and thank you everybody for participation into this session. Next session we'll meet with another new topic.